Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. Looks like everything is going smoothly up in Pennsylvania, which, basically is good news for the Steelers. So it's looking like schools are on track to get started from what we've been hearing. And with that, they're going to have high school sports. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers think that they're ready to have fans in the stands. So the one thing that did concern me, they put out a memo that said if you're a season ticket holder, you can put in for a hold on your seats because they use like a ranking system for people that aren't familiar. And so you have a spot, and the more seasons you buy tickets is like loyalty points. You can use those. And if you don't buy, like if you skip a year, you lose your ranking. And they said that they'll take people that want to hold their spot, but only if they have a valid reason that gets approved for coronavirus. So like, I don't know what that means exactly. So like, let's say you're like a 30-year-old guy and has a family and you lost your job. Are they going to let you hold your season tickets for next year? Or are they only doing that if you're at risk to die? Like if you're over 65? They're very vague. And so I thought that was just a weird thing to put out. And it's almost like, why are you doing that? And so, I mean, in terms of optics, not a good look. I know some other just teams around the country, some of them aren't even taking it that far. Just as a comparison, the state of Michigan, they're talking recently about pushing all of their high school sports that are contact, like football, into the spring. And they're going to flip it with track. So like schools would come back, track, you can have distancing in place. I guess you would just run more races or more heats. And instead of having all 6 lanes filled, you would just fill 3 of them. I mean, I don't know what else they would do. I saw even the smaller version of the NCAA, I think it's the NAIA, they're limiting their schedule, which we've talked about. I know the Big Ten has talked about it, and we've brought it in a few times, where they're saying instead of playing 11 games, you're only getting 9 for football, and like track meets, they cut some out, and are trying to just limit that travel by doing regional stuff. But, I mean, that's pretty much the main update that we have. Not a whole lot of other news. I mean, Matt, you want to get into what you've been doing to get your team ready?
Well, just before we get any further, I thought one of the things that you'd brought up, the NFL put out a thing other than canceling the Hall of Fame game. They were telling the teams that they need to be starting their fall camps on time. So it wasn't like, even though we did mention about having the Hall of Fame game being canceled, the camp itself is still starting. So whatever they're doing with the preseason games is going to be something to be determined later. It looks like they're at least trying to get the teams to be physically ready to play in whatever shape that they're going to do come fall.
And I'm hoping that, and I know this is probably a weird spin to put on it, but I'm hoping that this season starts to kill the preseason games. Like, I'm hoping that they go ahead and just do the inter-team like scrimmages and maybe have like 1 or 2 preseason games. And then after they realize how well it went, they just push it into the next year. And I know there's all type of contract stuff put in, but I want to say that would be my dream for it to happen. We always talk about college dreams. That's my NFL dream.
Well, and it's a feasible dream, but I think the part to it that you leave out is there's so many players that will miss out on opportunities. Like the one of the biggest cases that I would say is look at in the early 2000s with Terrell Davis. It was a preseason game on special teams that he made a name for himself that earned himself a spot on the Denver Broncos roster. If you get rid of preseason games, how many
early 2000s? Bro, he was the highlight of their 1998 Super Bowl team.
Oh, I meant 90s.
Oh my gosh, what are you talking about? You're making us look awful.
my brain's not working. Maybe I have corona.
And we know there's Bronco fans that listen to the show, so we can't be getting the facts wrong. We get torn apart.
But you look at someone like Terrell Davis. That if you get rid of those preseason games, he may not even be on the Denver Broncos roster, and that's the kind of thing that I think hurts. If there's something that they have to fall back on, like say an XFL, a AAF, some kind of other league where you can have players that can be developed and are able to, if they get cut early in their NFL career, they're not just completely hung out to dry. I think that's something that helps them out.
Well, I'm also wondering, and we can even bring up the XFL, there's been rumors that the bidding that's been happening, because they're doing I don't know if it's silent bidding. I don't think we know who the leaders are or whatever. I think it goes through the end of July. I could be wrong. I don't know the exact dates, but I know that it started, and based on the bids they've received, it's leaked out that they could be returning as early as next year. And so I'm wondering, I think we did talk about it, and I was wondering if it was actually going to be like a TV network that was just going to come in and own it. I know there might be some weird quirks, but it's done them pretty well whenever they've owned part of the network. Like Fox owns part of the Big Ten network, and so they own a good chunk of all that programming. Everyone knows ESPN owns some of this SEC rights, and so what if they just owned part of the league? And then the other big part is Oliver Luck. He has that lawsuit coming. I wonder if a team just bid him out and they just continued with him as commissioner, because he still has the name. You can bring all those other coaches back and maybe try to bring in other guys like Steve Spurrier. Why not? And then to your point, Matt, then you already have a built-in sort of minor league, and then you don't need all these preseason games just to get looks at guys. You can use that to kind of build out, and it might get a little bit more of a bidding war or whatever. Maybe you don't get as many people just because there's not that many teams, but you're actually giving them more of a chance to make a name for themselves. It's not like, here you get one series. We might not even throw your way if you're a receiver, and then you're cut. You would have weeks worth of games to make a name for yourself.
And the point to that is, look at how many players from this XFL team, for as many people that may have had negative opinions about it, how many of these guys that went from the XFL and are now signed on to NFL contracts because of the exposure that they had from the league? So even though, you can say it's lesser talent, it's lesser this or whatever, the bottom line to it is that it's exposure for players to make a name for themselves, to give them that opportunity to compete. Now, it's not to say that all of them are going to make the 53 roster at the end of the day, but they have the opportunity to sign that contract, to get to camp, to have a spot.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, just getting their name out there and getting some type of eyeballs on them. Because once you leave college, there are big names that wash out all the time. We still see articles about Johnny Manziel. I wouldn't bring him up on the show, but it makes a point because I just saw a headline ESPN come across one of my things about Johnny Manziel, said he's stepping away from football. It's who's even asking him still? Who's thinking I need a story. Oh, you know who I should call? Johnny Manziel. And then see if he's still interested in football. At some point, it's come on. Which I forgot to even put on here. That reminds me of an actual quarterback, Cam Newton. He got signed by New England for 1 year, $7 million. That's basically the minimum. You're telling me that all these other teams, and I saw an article, I don't know if it was I forget, was it the Boston Globe? I don't know. But it was a Homer newspaper trying to make it seem like no one else wanted him. And that this is his best chance to try to show everyone that he can win inside a system that's known for winning. And I was what is this? I don't think I tweeted it out or anything, but it was just a weird take. You're telling me that all other 29 teams, or how many teams are there? 31 other teams, that they
32.
have quarterbacks that are good. You're telling me teams that have never made the playoffs in years are not willing to take a look even at a guy for the minimum of caliber of Cam Newton? I mean, he played in the Super Bowl. How many teams have never played in a Super Bowl, Matt?
There's a handful that have never played for a Super Bowl, but I think the thing that you got to look at with them is that with Newton's deal, it was incentive laden. So if he's going to sign for a league minimum contract, maybe New England was the team that was going to give him the opportunity to earn the incentives that then his contract, instead of it being $7 million, is going to be a lot higher, which, for him, it makes sense. And the scary thing is New England's had all this downtime to kind of think about, well, if we sign him, what do we want to build around him? So they have all this downtime that they can game plan how to utilize him. It's a scary situation.
Downtime, Matt. Richer. They've had to work overtime. They have to get camera guys into other facilities that are usually closed down so they're able to record their practices and stuff. Did you see that? That came out where they they tried to they disassociated some videographer from their team from the Bengals fiasco last year, where that guy was filming the sideline, and they made him the scapegoat. At some point, you have to say, okay, there's a lot of weird filming that Bill Belichick, I mean, he's calling the shots. It's not like it's just some random guy that they hired. He's like, you know who might want this footage? Bill Belichick. Wonder if he does. And he goes up and gives it to him. It just doesn't happen that way. So I'm almost wondering, I feel bad for that guy. Is he going to be able to find another job now?
I'm pretty sure he's been financially compensated.
You think under the table?
Under the table, over the table, wherever, whatever he's doing, I bet he's been paid for his services.
I guess it depends on the table. We know where Robert Kraft liked to hang out. So, I mean, Cam Newton, do you think he's a starter? We'll go there.
Yes. There's no reason you sign someone like him and you don't at least give him the opportunity to compete. That's not to say with Jarrett Stidham being there that he doesn't beat Cam out, but I think that would be that would be a really tough sell to make.
That's why I think I would have liked, not really exactly liked, but why not have the Browns take that pick? Why not try to sign him for the same deal, a minimum? You have all these personalities and things. Take Cam, he's already been in the spotlight. He knows how to handle it. His problem is he's been injured, Matt. That's not going to cause a controversy if he's injured. I mean, he didn't even play last year. He comes in. Who's Baker Mayfield learning from? Seriously.
I don't know. But I know bringing in someone at this point isn't going to do anything for him. You really think that having some kind of mentor is going to change the way he plays? His whole game at Oklahoma, his whole time at the Browns has been wing it and figure it out as he goes along. So I don't think that having someone to come in at this point is going to do anything for him. I think he is what he is. I don't know what would make sense to try to bring him in other than if you think that maybe he's not the guy. That would have been the only scenario that I think that it would have made sense. When you look at someone like Pittsburgh, absolutely. We've beat that dead horse the last couple of weeks that he should have signed in Pittsburgh, especially with the deal that he signed. He could have come out and competed for that starting job.
Yeah, because that's true. We were looking at Jameis Winston getting $14 million or whatever it was, and we could have got that to work under the salary cap. Cam Newton only took $7 million. I think that was what hit the cap. So, I mean, he easily could have fit there, but then you have the problem with two injured quarterbacks. They just throw dice to see who's healthy to play, Ben or Cam.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I said. I think that it made more sense for him to sign there, unless he was going in saying, "I'll sign this minimum deal. I'll sign an incentive-laden deal, but I'm going to be the starter." going.
He has to have that mindset. He has to be going in thinking, you know what, I'm going to show everyone that it was more Belichick and not Tom Brady. That has to be his mindset, that he can go there and he knows he has an awesome coach and that he's going to win a Super Bowl. Why else would you sign there?
Well, and that would be the greatest burn. I mean, for Cam, that would be the greatest burn, to leave Carolina, go to New England, win a Super Bowl, and then just be like, you should have kept me around.
Well, that wouldn't be great if he played against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, because then we'd want Tom Brady to win.
It would be hilarious because he tried to replace Jameis Winston, and you can't because now he has good vision.
The Saints, they have their own issues. They got to sort through. Plus, Tom Brady, he's been getting a lot of flack because of the coronavirus stuff, so he's not very welcome down there.
See, that's why he moved down there, because he's old. He knows he's in that demographic where coronavirus is affecting older citizens. So he moved to where it's warm, trying to get away from heat breaking down the coronavirus, trying to get away from that cold New England weather where he'd catch it.
It's not even working, though. Well, speaking of that, the NBA is supposed to be moving down there, and they have came out and said that the spikes in coronavirus down there might stop their season. And I was surprised, actually, that I've seen a couple players opt out of coming back. And like I've said before, if you look at your team record and you see that your team, whatever, like 12 out of 8 that make the playoffs, you know you don't have a chance. They're making you play like a weird end of season schedule. You can't win your way in. If the teams above you win, you could win all 5 games and still not make it. So like there's no incentive for some of these teams to come back. Like you're not getting a bonus. Like you're already off. You got paid your whatever salary. Just don't show up. Take your 10-game salary cut and whatever. And so I saw like the Lakers, they had a guy opt out and they're in the playoffs. And now they're trying to bring back J.R. Smith that they worked out last summer. And I thought they were going to sign because LeBron signs all his friends. And when they didn't, I was like, oh, that's kind of odd. Now he's been sitting at home, resting up. And now they're going to bring him back probably.
For this moment.
If they have it. Because they talk about how it makes the most sense. And I think like a lot of people were like, oh, well, the NHL, which we've really not heard anything from. All they keep announcing is that they've narrowed down the cities to 4. I think Pittsburgh's out of it. It's like Chicago, like the weird ones. And like I think LA was still included. It's like, why? Like, why would you pick states that are getting hit hard right now? It's like no one's thinking it through. I still think they should have went to the middle of nowhere and just started right back up. And then their viewership would have been through the roof. At this time, they're taking so long. Like by the time the NHL happens, football is going to be on. NHL already loses viewers to basketball and whatever else. People aren't going to stop watching football to watch the NHL. I mean, Pittsburgh, you will get the Penguins viewers turning in, but like you're not going to tune in to watch some random hockey game. It's just not going to happen. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. And if the NBA doesn't open up in Orlando, like what do they do then? It's like a weird, do they end the year? Do they just, like if it does get delayed, then you can't say, oh, we're not going to come back now, but we'll be back in October, like 2 months later, you just open the entire league back up. Like that just doesn't seem feasible. Like if they cancel this Orlando league, then they have to delay the start of the fall, I would think. What do you think, Matt?
I would say yes, but to me, the whole thing that I'm thinking about is get one of these premier professional teams to start getting something going, and I think everyone else falls in line. You know, NBA and NHL, they're sub-level compared to football. So it's like if they have an opportunity right now that if they want to seize the market, they need to push forward with it and get it going. Because it's like everyone wants to wait to see what's going to happen. You know, if they drag their feet too long, you know, the bottom line to a lot of this is it's money. It's football generates a lot of money. These professional sports generate a lot of money. You got to figure out a way to start having these games, getting some sense of normalcy back, and whatever way you have to do to make that happen. They need to try to do it, because if it gets back to where college football is pushing forward, the NFL is pushing forward, even at the lower levels of high school, we've been cleared, in Pennsylvania for having our summer activities resumed. We're kind of waiting to see what our governor and the legislator wants to do as far as the fall, in terms of bringing students back and what they want to do as far as athletics. But everything is set to return to normal. So if high school football is back to normal, why couldn't the NBA or NHL or MLB get going sooner?
Well, that's why my last topic on here, the college football players, schools keep having more and more people test positive. And I think I teased this a little bit last week, but I kind of said it off the cuff. But I honestly wonder if teams are just having their players work out knowing that they're going to get sick, and then setting themselves up for the fall season. And I think people were roasting Boomer Esiason for saying this on CBS or something today. But I think he was looking at it the wrong way. He was thinking that the people were getting sick now, and they were making them get sick on purpose, just so that when the fall season hit, they're like, your star quarterback, you make sure all your quarterbacks get sick now, because we've joked about it. What happens if all your quarterback room gets sick at the same time in October or November? Like, they just don't show up. You don't have a quarterback. So he's saying like, oh yeah, they're going to get sick, and then you don't have to worry about them getting sick again, so they'll be able to play. It's almost, to me, like they're just giving them the antibodies, because all the science right now says if you have the antibodies, you're not going to get sick again. So you can look at it from a money perspective. And how are you going to shut down the football team if the entire team has the antibodies already? And that's from like a big conspiracy business side of it. But that's what I'm looking at it, because if they were really worried, Clemson would have shut down workouts. I mean, the coaches aren't there, which are kind of protecting the coaches, but no one cares if the coaches get sick. Like, let's be honest, because the news story will say, so-and-so coach got sick in the fall, blah, blah. They're not going to say, oh, college football shouldn't have happened. They're going to say, oh, well, he's making millions of dollars. But if a kid gets sick and he goes down, then that's a whole different thing.
Well, if a kid goes down, that's a massive difference. But don't tell me that going into fall, if Don Brown catches coronavirus and has to miss 2 weeks, that's not going to have an impact on Michigan football. I think that
Matt, you're not thinking about it right. If that week is Ohio State, then what would be the difference? We might even do better. What are you talking about? He usually does miss a week or two a year.
Fair enough. But, you look at someone like that it makes sense to have those people ready to go, because one of the arguments was that if coaches get it, this may be an opportunity for graduate assistants to step into on-field roles. Because if you have an on-the-field coach, like when you look at Alabama that has like 97 assistants that are unpaid and in the box, when you have a coach that goes out, you just plug one of those GAs or volunteer coaches or whoever into the on-field role, and you don't miss a beat.
But I'm thinking that it's not even going to matter, because you're going to get to the point where the entire team's already had it, so the immunity's in the building. And the coaches, I mean, if they were to get sick, they're going to have top-of-the-line health officials right there taking care of them. I mean, let's be honest, there's been no celebrity deaths from this, right?
Right. Well, the thing that I was actually thinking about this recently was that I wonder with the universities how many of the coaches have already been tested for the antibodies, just to see which players, which coaches have already, because when you look at college, if they're willing to pay players for their likeness, that may be something to streamline these players to say, you have a chance to make money off of your jersey sales, your name, your image, or whatever in the fall. we want to make sure that you have the antibodies that they can get those players tested so that they're eligible to be able to participate and capitalize on their likeness.
Well, that's where, I mean, when you're looking at that, I think some coaches have already had the positive antibody tests and they've been releasing them, saying like, yeah, I've already had it, whatever. And so that's why I think it comes to the point where some of these like workouts, they're calculated. I mean, you look at the three big teams that everyone's been talking about, Clemson, LSU won't even say their numbers anymore. They've kind of just hidden it, but there was people like leaking it on social media saying that large amounts of the players were all sick together and they were just like in their dorm room, whatever, for athletes. And like, that was it. Like they were just honestly just there. And it was almost like the chicken pox. You get it to get over with it. And then you get the antibodies. Cause like they keep talking about how, oh, they're going to antibody test and NFL players every week or 3 times a week. Like we've talked about. Because I said that was probably going to be their plan. And they came out and said that was their plan because it gives them a day in between. But after everyone on the team has the antibodies, like at what point are they going to keep testing them? Like they're going to stop. And then it becomes a risk just to the fans. And the fans are paying to be there. The fans don't have to be there. So like if a coach or whatever is worried about it, like you said, Matt, they can show up early. They can be in the press box. It can be disinfected. They can have doctors on hand or whatever, team doctors making sure that they don't interact. And you might be right. They just delegate the on-field duties or whatever. I'm sure the NCAA won't care about that rule this year as long as people aren't getting sick and dying. That's pretty much what their stance has been so far. And so I don't think it's about teams getting an advantage during the season. I think that some teams are just getting into a place where there's no excuse for them to cancel. And so, I mean, like in a weird negative side, you have a couple teams that are doing this already, but I don't think it's across the board. I don't think some schools are doing it. And so, like, what happens if you start the season and there's only like 32 teams that want to play? Or like whatever number, a weird number, like they just have half schedules, or is it going to just be a conference thing? I don't know. So it's the end of June. They're running out of time because there's only July, and then August would be whenever everything's full contact or whatever. And if it doesn't get to that point, and the same goes for the NFL, like I understand them canceling the off-site Hall of Fame game, but if they start to cancel some of the preseason ones, then you start to worry. But I honestly don't think the NFL is going to be the first sport. Like if Major League Baseball and the NBA cancel, like I just don't see how the NFL is going to keep going. But that could just be me being negative. I don't know. You have anything else?
No.
All right. Pretty much a short show. There's nothing really going on. 10K training, dude. My foot's starting to heal up, so I'm hoping that wound on my foot stops my ankle from hurting. Because that's been a killer. I've been still going up, so my goal was to just increase 10 minutes every week. So I'm up to 30 minutes this week.
There we go.
I'm telling you, by the time I'm done, my ankle's killing me. And then it hurts me pretty much for the rest of the day. So it's been fine this afternoon. I haven't iced it or anything. But I honestly think it's just because stepping on that thing, which I talked about in an earlier show, like the very first week I stepped on something in a field right through my shoe and cut the bottom of my foot. So I'm hoping that heals up and then we're able to go. But I have it planned out that we do 30 minutes. Next week could be 40, then 50, and then I think 60, which should get me close. My pace depends on the day. Sometimes it's down to like 70 minutes right now. Sometimes it's up to 80. I think my goal was, I think they said around 60 to 70 was the average, or 50 to 70. So we'll see if I can get that 10K in the minutes. I did find out that my watch has K. I can change it to kilometers, which has helped me train a little bit. Because before I was doing miles, and miles suck, dude. They're so long. that you're just like watching them. And then when I switch to kilometers, I'm like, oh, it's going by pretty fast. And then I realize I have to go higher, but it's all a mental game. He's got to block everything out. So the only thing that sucks is it's pretty hilly in my neighborhood. So like as soon as I start running, I'm straight uphill for the first kilometer and a half or whatever it is. So that sucks. I remember there's a story of Jerry Rice, how he would run like 5 miles uphill. It's like, why would you torture yourself? That's how you have to be. That's when you're the GOAT.
Yes.
You have to just be that crazy to be like, you know what? Every day I'm going to do this.
I'm just going to do it just because I don't have anything else to do. And
yeah, but if you're getting paid that much, that's why I'm surprised like other people don't work out as hard. Like you see like T.O. and Ocho Cinco guys that are like notorious gym rat guys. And then you look at some of the other guys that are insanely talented that are just goofing off, getting in trouble in the offseason, not working out at all. It's like, just think how much better you could be if you actually put in some effort.
But the funny thing is, you're mentioning off-season workouts, and here we go. We had yesterday at my high school, first organized team workouts, and the greatest turnout that I've had in the 4 years that I've been associated with the program. We had on the field for voluntary summer workouts. So I'm proud of my kids. Nice. And I tweeted about it, and I'm going to pound the drum on it because we're getting to the point where we're starting to turn a corner. And I'm hoping we keep that momentum going tomorrow and following all of our COVID protocols and temperature testing and everything else. But that's where we're at. And it's when you show up for the off-season stuff, that's where you get better. That's where you grow. And you do tough stuff together. You know, that's where the team comes together. So hopefully that we see the positive effects of that come fall.
Yeah, because that's when it really makes a difference if you start early. Like I've been talking about the 10K. Obviously, it'd been much better if I could increment by 5 minutes or like something a little bit easier. But sometimes you just have to deal with what you have. And so all the people that like put it off. It's like, I think there was like a Bruce Lee quote or something where he said like, once you get into like the heat of battle, it's all down to like whatever you're training at. So if you're training at 50%, you're going to be only giving 50% once your body gets exhausted or whatever. So like, it's almost like people that you're like, yeah, I've been getting ready for a run. Like I'm going to do a 5K, but I've only been running a mile a day. Then on the day of the race, you run that first mile and then you're dead and trying to fight through and try to just finish. It's like, holy crap. That's why I've been trying to increase it as fast as I can. Because that way it gives me another week or two to really add on speed or whatever you can do after the fact. But you got to get the distance down. Otherwise, you're going to be screwed trying to get time because you'll be dead flailing around. I had one last story because when I was like way back in high school, since we're short on time, I ran track. They talked me into running track. But I also played baseball. So I can't remember what year this was. Maybe I didn't play baseball that year because I might have been a freshman. But the entire time I was just practicing like running sprints because I hated doing practice. And so they're like, go out there, run a 400. And I'm thinking, okay, not that bad. Matt, I'm telling you, I'm leading the race the entire time. And I'm like, oh, this is easy. I hit that last 100. Everybody blows by me. I get to the finish line. I was so dead and it wasn't even like I didn't even think like, okay, I'm just going to dust everyone and run off the blocks. Cause you can kind of see everyone, like it's a staggered start, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to keep pace. But that first straightaway, I realized like, all right, I'm ahead of everyone. I'm just going to keep this pace. But I didn't know like if everyone was slowing down or what, but I definitely didn't train for the 400 like I should have. And as soon as I got to that last straight stretch, everyone just blows by me. And I remember there's one other guy on my team. Me and him were both trained the same exact way. And it was me and him leading the entire race. And then at the end, we both got dusted. I looked at him like, what the hell were we doing? We should have just waited back. been much better finish if we were losing the whole time than if we just got dusted. So that's why I hated track. That's my running story. But you learn some life lessons that way. You have anything else?
No. Check out southboundsports.com. It's a great website.
We'll get some stuff. Hopefully sports start back up soon, and we'll get some Steelers news and stuff up there. But definitely go to southboundsports.com. Make sure you subscribe or stay subscribed. We're still getting downloads, so we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get some real sports talk about soon. And so thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.